Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Hi there, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Kissing Spine podcast. And in this episode, I'm going to discuss what causes a kissing spine and why so many cases are being diagnosed right now. Because it seems like kissing spine has been a sort of pandemic. I don't want to make a joke about it too much, considering what happened over the last couple of years, but more and more horses are being diagnosed with a kissing spine. And it seems like the amount is just growing. And it's interesting to see whether that's something because of what we are doing to the horses, or whether it's a little bit of a coincidence. I'm going to discuss it right now. So sit tight, hold on tight, here we go. So daily I hear different theories on where kissing spine comes from. And I often get the question, does my horse have a kissing spine because it was ridden too young? And this is a very hard question to answer, since the only one who knows what happened to your horse were the people who were there at the time and your horse. And well, your horse cannot talk, and a lot of people are not that reflective on their work, so to say. So it will be hard to determine whether starting too young is the cause of a kissing spine, but I'm going to get there, so hold on. Stick with me, bear with me. The first thing that I want to take a look at is breeding. Can a horse get kissing spine out of how it's bred, like natural causes? And the answer to this is yes. In the beginning, I was not really a believer in this thing. I really was in a place where I felt all damage done to horses is caused by humans. But, when you go down the rabbit hole, you're going to do more research. And there I figured out that actually, yes, there are especially a couple of breeds, but horses with shorter backs are more likely to develop kissing spine, since more vertebrae are being pushed into the same area. And we see dressage horses being bred towards shorter backs because that's easier to train than a horse with a long back. But it also has a huge downside. A smaller area for the saddle to carry the rider and divide the weight upon, and less space for all the vertebrae. So, it's like lose on two sides, and one win somewhere because it's easier to train. Well then, guys, maybe we should work a little bit harder and deal with the more difficult stuff. Overall, it right now seems that thoroughbreds and quarter horses are more likely to develop a kissing spine. Arabian thoroughbreds are also quite sensitive for them because of their conformation, but a ton load of Arabians are bred just to be show horses and they're not being ridden. So their discomfort is not really becoming that much of a problem, especially if the horse is in pain and becoming quite showy because of it. Then they actually use the horse's discomfort for their advantage. So and a horse that's not performing is going to be replaced for a horse that performs better. So they're not really looking into it. But because of their conformation, Arabian thoroughbreds as well are really sensitive for a kissing spine. So more horses are diagnosed now because in the last couple of years it has become more normal to not just x-ray the legs when you go buy a horse, but also x-raying the back and neck, especially with horses that are a little bit more expensive, like dressage horses, like jumping horses, like race horses, like quarter horses. Like these horses are being used for sports. They are not the cheapest horses, especially the more talented ones. So if you're investing a lot of money, you really want it to be as healthy as possible. So if you can x-ray it all, then why not? So this is why more and more horses are being x-rayed at the age between 3 and 5, and kissing spine is already been found in the body. Some people may say that these horses are not really, you cannot use them for sports anymore. I'm going to discuss that in more depth in another episode, but you need to keep in your mind that a horse grows out until the age of 6 to 8. And actually, the spinal column isn't done developing between the age of 6 and 8. Which means that if your horse is being x-rayed at the age of 3 and kissing spine very mildly is being found, you still have 5 years of training that you can do to change and influence the conformation of your horse. Because your horse will change as long as it's still growing, and you can influence that with training. So this is why horses are being diagnosed a lot more now than back into a couple of years ago. I actually had a client who was buying a Frisian horse, and she was amazed. The horse just got x-rayed and she didn't ask for it. And she was like, yeah, but now you need to pay for the bill. And she was a little bit, yeah, but I didn't ask for back and neck x-rays. You just did that for me. Yeah, that's standard procedure now. But yeah, she had to pay the bill for that as well. So that was a little bit, she was a little bit surprised by that. So how horses are bred are definitely a part nowadays where the horse is more sensitive or more likely to develop a kissing spine. Again, these horses doesn't mean that they're in pain when they're diagnosed young. Also doesn't mean that they will not they will not get into pain when they're growing older. But that also depends a lot on how you work them and how you treat the horses. So cause number 2 that we see a lot is bad saddle fit. To my opinion, I feel that every horse owner should learn how to check if the saddle is fitting well. There is a lot of information out there, especially Saddle Fit for Life. I'm not being sponsored by them, but I will mention them a whole lot more. But Saddle Fit for Life is definitely an organization that provides a lot of free information out there. And there are also a couple of videos out there how to check whether your saddle is still fitting. In the future, I'm going to make a video about that as well. It's for sure available in my Rehab to Ride course. But maybe I will do a short free movie, like a short video about that as well. But bad saddle fit is definitely one of the higher reasons that horses develop a kissing spine. So let me give you an example. Do you remember high school where you had a backpack with shoulder straps that were a little bit too thin for the weight of your books? Like they start burning into your shoulders. Like the first 10 minutes you're okay. And then after that, the rest of the trip home is sort of surviving. And you do whatever you can to get rid of the pressure. So maybe you put your thumbs underneath it. Or maybe you put your hands underneath them. Or maybe you're constantly moving where the bands are. But you'll do whatever you can to get rid of that pressure. Because it's really annoying. And at a certain point even painful. What you can also have is that if you have a backpack, you're going out for the day, you have a backpack, and you keep having this one bulky side that keeps pressing into your back, like the back side is not equal. For me, that's really an annoying thing. So I really organize my back in such a way that, the part that goes on my back is straight. It's so annoying if you have something that's just bulking into your back. It's at a certain point, it's just, it becomes painful and it's just bothersome. So I want to get away from that pressure. Well, now imagine something being constantly pinching behind your shoulders every time you move and when you're walking, or constantly having pressure at your lower back. Yours is going to be fine for maybe 10 minutes at the beginning, and then it just gets uncomfortable. Your horse wants to get away from the pressure, and the first thing he will start doing is hollowing the back to get away from the pressure. The back muscles will get weaker, and this, if this is going on for too long, will create a kissing spine. It's very likely because the more the back collapses and the more the horse makes his back hollow, the more close the vertebrae will come together, and cha-ching, there we have the problem. Now, I already mentioned that because of the breeding shorter backs, there's less space for the saddle fitter to fit a saddle onto your horse. That will divide the weight of the rider onto the back of the horse if the saddle support area is really short. And we do that with breeding. So you can now see that getting a saddle fitted on a very short back is hard because you need to stay within the saddle support area. But if you also have vertebrae close together, and then a horse and a saddle that's not fitting and the horse wants to get away from that, then you have double score on the possibility that the horse might develop a kissing spine. So bad saddle fit is definitely a cause. And then we have training, bad training. And with bad training, I overall mean that training at a level that's too high for the horse. So the first thing that a horse should learn when it's young and it's starting to be prepared to be ridden, or when it's being started up as a youngster, is how to move the body sustainably, to bring the back up and to bring the spine up and to bring that hind leg underneath its body so I can start carrying weight on those hind legs. Right? So that's pretty much the first thing that you want your horse to do. And the stronger your horse becomes, the more weight he can start shifting to those hind legs with the back being pushed up. So you really get that lift in the front and that lowering of the hind end. And it doesn't matter whether you're training a thoroughbred, a dressage horse, a jumping horse, or a quarter horse. With a quarter horse as well, you want them to really have a lot of strength in their hind end. So you want to train that. If you want to have a sliding stop, you really want the back to be round, because else he cannot slide. And if you really want him to go spin, he needs to put weight on the hind leg. A thoroughbred that's on the racetrack, the more the back is developed, the more the hind end can come underneath, the more strong he'll become, the more powerful the strides, the more likely he's going to be fast. But what we see nowadays is that horses are being pushed into work that's too hard for them. They're not trained to do that yet in a too early stage of their training. So let me give you an example. I'm going to send you to the gym for 6 weeks, and then after that, you're going to compete in mid-level CrossFit. And then you're going to be pushed by me that you have to win, or at least perform to your utmost best. If not, maybe I'll come around with a whip or a couple of spurs, or maybe I will yank you in the mouth. I'm really making it a little bit of an ugly picture here, but this is what's going on. This is what's happening. So young horses, in some cases, like race horses and quarter horses, are being started at the age of 2. For me, especially if they're still babies, that feels way too young. But, I cannot ignore science that says, and that's not just horse science, also human science, that if kids start doing sports relatively early in a mid-level, low level or mid-level intensity, bones become more stronger compared to kids who are not doing sports in their early ages. So there's similar research done to horses. So horses that are started at the age between 3 and 4, and then gradually work is being added to their plate, have grown stronger bone structure than horses that are started at the age of 8, because the body in the growing cycle has not learned to develop to get stronger. How do you say that? it's not, the body couldn't develop along with the pressure that's on it, So if you start training a horse at the age of 8, which is possible, some people make these choices and then do it for valid reasons. They want to wait until the horse is done growing. But these horses are less likely to become really strong and very athletic because their bodies have not developed to the pressure that athletic horses are exposed to. And that some exercise levels, especially in jumping and stuff, you really want that body to develop. But then there's doing a little bit of training, and then there's doing training that's way too much for the horse. And that's what I mean with bad training. Exposing a young horse to a training level that doesn't fit them. As soon as the back of the horse is getting lost in the training, then the training is too much. Because in the beginning couple of years, it should all be about exercising them, growing a little bit of stamina, and getting that back muscles to engage, to get that hind legs engaged, and to really, start to get them stronger sustainably. So, if you want to develop a horse, it takes about 2 years to develop a strong top line. A top line that's strong enough to start doing some low-level dressage tests with, that you can really start them working into a working position, that they are really ready for some more stuff. So if you start a horse at the age of 3, which is in basics really fine, but it really matters. Are you going to ride this horse for 6 days a week for 40 minutes, or are you gradually going to increase the amount of work with full check, whether that back is still up, whether that hind legs are still engaged, and that they really learn how to develop their bodies properly? Now, if you ask me again, then the question, is it possible that my horse got kissing spine because it was started too young? The starting too young is not necessarily the problem. The problem is how they were started and how much work they had to do at that young age. And unless you know what happened to your horse, then you're the one who can answer that question. If you weren't there, your horse cannot talk. Seeing what happens overall as a trend right now, and if your horse was bred to do something higher in sports, then it is very likely that the combination of starting young and the training, and possibly also breed, altogether was the right pressure cooker to get a kissing spine. So, this was the episode on how the most likely causes of kissing spine. If you want me to take a look at your horse or your specific case, feel free to send me a message on Facebook. You can DM me on Instagram. You can join the Facebook group, Kissing Spine Rehabilitation Training with SDJ Horse Training. You can send me an email. So there's plenty of ways you can reach me. So I'm happy to take a look at your case and help you get started in your rehab process. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you will be there for the next episode.
I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.